It is Top 5 Tuesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. And I am not used to uttering that phrase, haven't done it in a couple of months now. But I'm Maurice Patton. That's Calvin White. We are here with you on this Top 5 Tuesday. We'll be here with you for the next couple of hours, talking local, regional, and national sports topics. And excited to do so here with Big Red. Calvin, what's happening?
What's up? It's
Just
it's gotten a little warmer than it has been over the last couple days. It was kind of a shock. I mean, not really a shock, but for the first time this year, I went outside yesterday, and the grass was a little frosty, and the windshield was frosted over. I did not have much fun taking my trash can to the end of the driveway last night at 10 p.m.
you should have taken it earlier. I'm not sure it would have made much of a difference. I saw something on Facebook earlier today, courtesy of Southern Tennessee Weather. Headline: Record cold day across southern Middle Tennessee. Several cities across our area likely set new record low maximum temperatures, meaning this was the coldest daytime high ever recorded on November 10th for these areas. In Columbia yesterday, it was 36. That was their high. Previous record was 37, set back in 1950. 34 in Lewisburg, previous record of 39 in 1941. In Lynchburg, it was 34. The previous record was 46, set in 2008. And it goes on through Monte Eagle, Shelbyville, Tullahoma, and Winchester. There's a disclaimer: these numbers are preliminary and not considered official until reviewed and confirmed by the National Weather Service. But I say all that to say this: Calvin is exactly right. It was awfully cold yesterday, and it's not a whole lot better out there today. But it's supposed to get up into the 70s by the end of the week. So, as Wade and I said yesterday, if you don't like the weather in Middle Tennessee, stick around for a few minutes. It'll change. So,
Yeah, and
something at least we got something to look forward to for Friday night, maybe.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure anybody will be looking forward to the frosty weather on Friday for teams that are still playing football. It feels like most years we're wearing shorts and a t-shirt on Christmas Day, and now it's 30 degrees in the early part of November.
No, actually, we're supposed to get up into the 70s by Friday.
Yeah, you just said it. Stick around for a minute and weather will change. Get your shorts and your t-shirts back out.
Yeah, something like that. Big show today. In the second hour, we will be joined, as Calvin and Wade typically are on Tuesdays, by the Blue Raider voice, Chip Walters, who apparently will be somewhere between here and Evansville. The Blue Raider men's basketball team has a game against the Purple Aces tomorrow, and they are traveling today. So we're hoping that Chip's connection will hold up for about 20 minutes or so at the top of the 3 o'clock hour so that we can get caught up on all things Blue Raider. In the next segment, we'll be joined by ALAINA Morris of VANDY247.com, talking a little self-explanatory. VANDY. The Vanderbilt women had a game yesterday against Furman. The Vanderbilt men had a game over the weekend down in Orlando, and Vanderbilt football continues to roll, though they faced down a hell of a challenge on Saturday. But ALAINA can give us a little insight into everything going on West End. Looking forward to chatting with her in the next segment, excuse me. We'll also be talking some other college football. We will be talking some baseball, and I can explain my attire here in the next bit. Get into a little NFL with some Monday Night Football action from last night, among other things. We will touch on some hockey, some professional basketball. A long-expected move has finally come to fruition in the National Basketball Association. And if you don't know, we'll talk more about that later in the show as well. And it is Top 5 Tuesday. Big college basketball schedule tonight. We've got 3 top 25 matchups on tap, so it only seems fitting that Calvin and I will give you our top 5 men's college basketball players of all time. That will be our Top 5 Tuesday to wrap up the show. So looking forward to all of that. Again, Great show, a lot to get into. Um, Calvin, I guess we may as well go ahead and get into it with yesterday's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Let's get started with women's basketball results from yesterday. As we mentioned, Vanderbilt doubled up Furman 96-48. The New York Rangers doubled up the Preds 6-3. And Philadelphia with a 10-7 victory over the Green Bay Packers on Monday Night Football. We'll talk more about that later in the show as well.
Looking at tonight's women's basketball schedule, Trevecca is hosting Fisk. Tip-off is at 5:30. MTSU travels to Cookeville, play Tennessee Tech. Tip-off is set for 6 p.m. on ESPN+. And Cumberland, the Phoenix travel to UT Southern for a 6 p.m. tip-off. In men's basketball, Tennessee State is hosting Oakwood tonight at 7 p.m. on ESPN+. Austin Peay travels to Wyoming to face the Cowboys at 7:30 p.m. And Welch College travels to UT Southern for an 8 p.m. tip. In the NBA, the Memphis Grizzlies travel to the Garden to play the New York Knicks tonight. Tip-off is set for 6:30. Ladies and gentlemen, those were your scores. That was your schedule, and that concludes today's rundown.
Your top story brought to you, as always, by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And, you know, if you thought this college football weekend was a wild one, you don't really know the half of it, because I don't know if there was a full moon or what. I didn't really notice. I don't think I was outside Saturday night, but there were three brawls in college football action on Saturday. One between Bethune-Cookman and Grambling State in the SWAC that saw 27 total suspensions, 3 of those suspensions for 2 games. $65,000 in fines totally, 25 for Bethune-Cookman, 40 for Grambling. But wait, there's more. Texas State and Louisiana, they don't call them Louisiana Lafayette. They don't like that. Out of the Sun Belt got into it as well. 13 suspensions following ULL's 42-39 win over Texas State. Conflict began during the final offensive plays and intensified as players and coaches gathered for post-game handshakes, ultimately spilling into the stadium tunnel. Anytime you've got one tunnel and 2 teams, that's not a good place to be. But Texas State, 6 suspensions. One player got 2 games. Louisiana Lafayette got 7 suspensions with 1 sidelined for the rest of the year, including any potential bowl game. Finally, they got into it at the D3 level. In the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, which is primarily Virginia Division III schools, but also one out of North Carolina. And of course, that's the one. Guilford College and Averett University had a post-game altercation. And they are both going to forfeit. They have 1 game remaining. They will not be playing it. Bridgewater and Roanoke College will have the opportunity to play each other in light of these forfeits. They were each scheduled to play, Guilford and Averett. While competition is at the heart of what we do, the integrity with which we do it. I'm sorry, let me get this right. While competition is at the heart of what we do, the integrity with which we compete defines who we are. The actions following Saturday's contest did not reflect those values, and this decision underscores our commitment to maintaining the standards our conference represents. That's from Old Dominion Athletic Conference Commissioner Brad Bankston. I want to thank both schools for their cooperation and open dialogue in reaching this decision. Man, I mean, if you can't get it dealt with during the game, once the game is over with, just go your separate ways and take that L and be done. Grambling defeated Bethune-Cookman 31-23 at home, and after the game, Tigers coach Mickey Joseph suggested that Bethune-Cookman's delayed exit from the locker room contributed to the escalation. Said, that's the disrespect stuff. We're not going to tolerate disrespect here at Grambling. You won't disrespect us. We're going to meet disrespect with disrespect. And
Whatever
so,
makes you feel good, I guess.
yeah, I guess. I don't know, man. Sometimes, there are those that would tell you that I am not exactly a non-petty person, but sometimes you just got to walk away from stuff.
Yeah,
And
I mean, this is the part of the year where maybe if you're not having too great of a season, I could understand if you're might have a little pent up frustration, but I also don't think that if you can't get your licks in during the game, then I don't know what much else you're going to be able to do after the game that you weren't able to do during the game, other than, I mean, during the game it would be pretty stupid to try and punch somebody with a helmet on, but I mean, if that's what makes you feel better after the game, then go for it, I guess.
yeah,
I'm
I guess,
I'm never
and
gonna
deal with. Go ahead.
I'm never gonna turn down an opportunity to be entertained.
There is that. Dr. Charles McClellan, Commissioner of the Southwest Athletic Conference, we are extremely disappointed by the events that transpired during halftime of the Bethune-Cookman at Grambling State football game. Acts in the Southwestern Athletic Conference and intercollegiate athletics. The conference office has and will continue to enforce a zero tolerance policy for all acts deemed to be of good sportsmanship. We expect from all individuals associated with the athletics programs within our league. And I mean, again, this $1,000 in fines in addition to the suspensions. Bethune-Cookman will be writing a $25,000 check to the SWAT. Grambling State hit for $40,000. Both teams were captured exchanging punches and being thrown along the benches as coaching staff struggled to restore order. I mean, it's just a mess, sounds like. So I don't know. I think maybe it is like you said, Calvin. There was some frustration on a lot of folks' parts, and I don't have records necessarily for any of the teams involved here, but there's got to be more to that than somebody saying something about somebody's mama, I would think. I mean, something really resonated with somebody and tipped some folks plural edge.
Yeah, those are some of the most competitive people, on the planet probably, and if you're out there winning 2 games, I could understand that. If you've got a little pent up aggression, you want to take it out, but like I said, I'm sure you could take care of that during the game.
You'd like to try to find another way to channel that, and you'd like for this to not become a trend coming down the stretch here, because we've gotten into November and a lot of folks, know that things aren't going well and aren't necessarily going to go well. And so hopefully some teams can refrain from this type of activity here as we get closer to the end of the season. But there's our top story: brawls across college football. Let's take a break here as we continue Top 5 Tuesday on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we will talk a little Vanderbilt athletics. No brawling on West End, with ALAINA Morris from Vandy247.com. Stick around.
Got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and the North Pole Village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
3-3.
Bee, oh, busy bee. Guys, not yet, not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now I'm ready, guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Welcome back into Top 5 Tuesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Calvin White. I'm Maurice Patton, and we're pleased to have with us now from Vandy247.com, ALAINA Morris, who covers Vanderbilt. ALAINA.
Hey, how are you guys?
We're doing well. We can't. There you are. Hey, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you taking some time with us on this cold Tuesday afternoon. At least you're inside. Thank goodness.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Obviously want to get into some Vanderbilt football, but you were at Memorial Gym last night for the Commodore women's matchup with Furman, and looked like a relatively pedestrian night for Michaela Blakes, but obviously the Commodores did what they were supposed to do, taking care of business against the Paladins 96-48. Other than getting out on the floor against somebody else, I'm not sure exactly what Shea Ralph necessarily looks for in matchups like that. But what did you see?
Yeah, Michaela Blake's with just 15 points last night. But I think the big thing for me was just how well-rounded the scoring was. There were 6 players who scored in double figures, and this is my 3rd season covering this team, and I don't think I've ever seen it just so spread out and pretty even. All players were within 10 and 16 points, so well distributed in the scoring margin there. 4 of them were starters, 2 of them came off the bench, and that was the big thing for me, just seeing how many different players can contribute in that column.
Justine Pissett, former Lady Vol, 13 points, 3 boards, 6 assists. I mean, you talk about well-rounded, and you know, as I'm looking at the box score, a lot of people getting on the boards and a lot of people sharing in the distribution of the ball. You got to like that.
Yeah, Justine Pissot's been great. Shay Ralph talked about that after the game yesterday, how she's become a lot more confident. She put in a lot of work in the summer, and you can tell she's had a great offseason. She's always been a good shooter. I think everyone, who's been around this program has known that she's got the ability to score. But for me, she's become a better defender. You can tell that she's rebounding the ball well. She's made some really great passes, and you mentioned sharing the ball. The other person that really stood out to me, it was Aubrey Galvin, and she's just a freshman, so people are kind of still getting used to the name there, but she's someone to watch. I mean, the way that she moves the ball, her passes are extraordinary to say the least. I'm wowed by a few every game, and so even though she's just a freshman, I think she's great in the backcourt with Michaela Blakes. Those two complement each other very well.
Galvin damn near messed around and got a triple-double, 11 points, 7 boards, 8 assists, and out of a freshman, over 31 minutes, that's not a bad night.
No, not at all. And she had a near triple double in their first game too. So she's already flirted with 2 of those this season. And I imagine, she might maybe land one in the near future.
Yeah, especially against non-conference schedule, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
ALAINA.
Go ahead.
Bad, Mo. ALAINA, 5 players in double figures. We've seen kind of the same trend with Mark Byington's team so far, where so many different players are able to score and kind of play positionless basketball. And now it's obviously there's not as much positionless basketball in women's basketball, but how much does that kind of open things up for Shay Ralph that she's got so many different players that can put the ball in the hole now?
I think that, last year they definitely had to rely on Michaela a lot more. And, you guys mentioned she was a little bit limited last night, but I think, if you're Vanderbilt, you should be happy that you have that many other options who can score the basketball and that you don't only have to rely on one player. Because if you were to talk to a coach for any other team, the game plan is going to be to key in on Michaela. But if you have players like Justine Pissot, Jacka Langham-Winantana, the Texas transfer, if you have those people who can score, then you're going to feel a lot better when Michaela might not be having her best night.
And I'm just box score watching here, but only gave up 48 points and, had 14 steals as a team. Is this Vanderbilt defense going to be as good as that box score kind of indicates, or was this just, the nature of the opponent?
They've always been a pretty good team defensively. I felt like last year they put that on display a good bit. They love to use their press. And so one thing about them, they like to get out in transition, score fast. And once they score quickly, they're going to be setting up in that press. And so they showed that last night. I know that was against a Furman opponent who, they're not going to see that kind of quality as we continue on throughout the season. But that press is impressive. They get up in your face. They make it really hard, especially once you cross that half court line. They really force you into that corner per se, where they use the out of bounds line to kind of turn into a third defender. It's something that really stood out to me, is just how well they execute the press.
ALAINA Morris from VANDY 24/7 joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Again, 6 players in double digits for Vanderbilt in that 96-48 win over Furman. We've mentioned Michaela Blakes, 15 points on 6 of 14 shooting from the floor, 4 boards, 4 assists in 29 minutes. Probably not the run that you're going to be used to out of her. She's probably going to get a little bit as this schedule progresses. But like you said, against a Furman team, good night to necessarily not have her out there and to see a lot of other people.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that was also a big thing for Shay Ralph last night, is just seeing what you had behind her and getting some younger players some experience who, just are new to college basketball. So I think the combinations were something they were also looking for, just who plays well with each other. That's a big thing for a lot of coaches, especially just early on in the non-conference.
I am intrigued, ALAINA, by the presence of Aaliyah Del Rosario on this roster. She scored 5 total points, had a pair of assists, no boards, but saw her play at the Webb School down in Bell Buckle, originally signed with LSU, transferred back to the area, and she is a physical presence in the paint.
Yeah, she definitely is. She stands at 6'6", and so last night it was kind of interesting. You didn't see her until the second half, but I think for me it just depends on the opponent. Furman was a smaller, quicker team, and they didn't have a big that was gonna, go up and try to match her physicality and her size. But when you get to the SEC and you have true centers who are just as tall as Del Rosario, then you're going to want to throw her in there and she can, match up with anyone. So I think it's more so a scheme kind of thing based off of who you're playing, but she definitely has the size for the SEC. And from what I've seen so far, she does a good job at finishing around the rim, and she's a pretty good passer. Last night she ran the floor pretty well and got a bucket in transition. So I think for her, it's just going to be a matchup thing, but definitely a piece that they didn't have last year was the size that she brings.
Right. Shifting gears, I guess you were a little busy over at the stadium, but the Vanderbilt men, as Calvin alluded to, went down to Central Florida on Saturday and handled their business. And again, this is a team, on a Saturday, it's kind of tough to pay a whole lot of attention to them because of the football team. But I think this is a team that's going to be fun to watch as the season progresses as well.
Yeah, most definitely. I watched that game, and honestly, the depth and the pieces they have, I think they have the makings to be one of the better teams that Vanderbilt has seen in a long time. And it starts with the core three that they kept from last year: Tyler Tanner, Tyler Nickel, and Devin McLaughlin. Having those guys come back was huge. And I think the one that really sticks out to me is Tyler Tanner. He was just a freshman last year, so you didn't, see him the most confident at times, which is understandable, but I mean, he had a great offseason, and he's become an elite level scorer who can really shoot the basketball. And then they brought in a lot of transfers too to really help out with that. And the two that really stick out to me are Duke Miles from Oklahoma and Tyler Harris from Washington.
They got plenty of Tylers, huh? They got the market cornered on Tylers.
They sure do. 3 of them.
Yeah, one of them though I love to watch is Nickel. He established himself as a flamethrower from behind the arc last year, and man, it's just fun to watch him get loose and knock that down from deep. Going to be a factor, it would feel like, particularly, I guess, if somebody screws up and comes out in a zone against them.
Yeah, for sure. It feels like he's the guy that if you need a 3-point bucket, first play probably is going to be drawn up for Tyler Nickel. I mean, he's tall too, so he has the ability to shoot over defenders really well, and a lot of fun to watch for sure. Definitely can knock it down from behind the arc.
You mentioned Duke Miles, 20 points in that 105-93 win against Central Florida. Nickel and Tanner with 17 each. Frankie Collins with 17 and Tyler Harris with 14. So again, a lot of offensive contributions from a lot of different folks, as you would expect when you score 105 points, I guess.
Yeah, Duke Miles is just as capable of scoring from outside, but I think the thing that makes him a little bit different is he's really quick and he's good at getting downhill and finishing around the rim. And then you also mentioned Frankie Collins. He's a veteran point guard who's been around for a while, and I think he, pairs really well with Tyler Tanner. They were out there together at times, and when Tanner was taken out and Collins was put in, you really didn't see much of a change at all. And that's definitely a good thing to have when, you can rotate between point guards and you still feel really comfortable with either one.
When they're both on the floor, who's running the point? Or are they just a two-guard offense at that point?
From what I saw against UCF, it felt like a 2-guard offense. I feel like there were some times that, Frankie was bringing the ball off the floor, and other times it'd be Tyler, or Tyler would be on the wing and he would get open looks from the 3. It just kind of, I think, depends on who else is out there and maybe just kind of what happened on the previous play. But either one of them has the ability to run the offense.
Alaina, it might sound like I'm nitpicking here, but you're up 16 at the half and you give up 57 in the second half, with a lineup like Mark Byington has right now, to where, you can trot out, 3 or 4 starters at just about any game that are, 6'6" or bigger. Just, I don't know if you got to, watch in depth, but, just what happened to that defense in the second half?
I think that foul trouble also played a big part of it. I mean, UCF was in the bonus 4 minutes into the second half, and so you had to be a lot careful, with how physical you were playing. And so, cutting into that, obviously getting downhill. I mean, I'm sure that UCF was telling him, like, all right, get to the free throw line, try to get fouled and eat away at that a little bit. And Johnny Dawkins, too, who's a great coach who has a talented UCF program. And, they're also very big. They're actually on paper bigger than Vanderbilt. So they kind of tried to go inside a little bit more. They didn't shoot too much from behind the arc. So I think they really tried to push to get downhill, especially because they knew that, at will, they were going to be at the free throw line shooting the bonus free throws.
And, us around the the Mid-State have kind of known Tyler Tanner's name for a couple years now, just from his time at Brentwood Academy. But like you mentioned it a little bit, but last year when he came in as a freshman, how much better has he gotten from year one to year two, to where he's able to go out there and be Mark Byington's primary point guard for an SEC basketball team?
Yeah, last year, it was interesting, and I have to think of the way that Mark Byington phrased it, but essentially what he said is in crunch time minutes, in the last 4 minutes of the game, Tyler Tanner was the player who was on the floor at the most at the end of games that were within a certain margin. I don't know the exact one, but it just kind of shows how much trust he had in him as a freshman. And I think last year everybody knew he was a really good on-ball defender, one of the toughest on-ball defenders in the SEC, even as a freshman. But the biggest jump that he took was his scoring. Like, you can tell if you just watch him that he is so much more comfortable creating his own shot, taking open looks and knocking them down with confidence. And so if he has the ability to score the ball and be a great defender, I mean, he could be one of the better point guards in the SEC.
He had a run of turnoverless ball games that went pretty deep into the season. So, I mean, I think as much as anything, he kind of earned Byington's trust just for his ability to take care of the ball. And when you're doing that, and when you're scoring as well, then that makes you even more valuable at the one, I guess.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, when you don't turn it over and you can also score it the way you're scoring now, it's going to be really tough to take a guy like him off the floor.
Vanderbilt continues its schedule tomorrow night when Eastern Kentucky comes to Memorial Gym, the first of 6 straight home games for the Commodores, including a pre-Thanksgiving matchup with Western Kentucky on the 26th and SMU the following Wednesday night. That's going to be a big one, I would feel like, coming out of the ACC. But the schedule kind of turns up a little bit later in the non-conference. Again, SMU on December 3rd. 2 weeks after that, they go to Memphis. I imagine there's exams somewhere in between there. And then they go to Wake Forest right before Christmas. Nice little schedule here for the Commodores.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, already playing a game at UCF kind of tells you with the way that Mark Byington really wanted to construct it. And so that has the ability to be a quad one win if things go well for the Knights. And you mentioned Memphis. That's a really tough team that Penny Hardaway has down there, and an in-state matchup as well. So that should be a fun one. And, going on the road too is tough. You mentioned Wake Forest, especially around the holidays. So, if you can pick up a win or two or even 3 out of those games, it can really help your schedule and boost your resume, especially, that's become such a big part of college basketball, the metrics and the numbers. When you get to March, it's really, all right, who did you beat and who did you lose to? And are these good wins or these good losses? And so I think that, those are going to be really quality matchups that can help them down the road.
That Western Kentucky game, at first glance, it looks like a game that you might see a bunch of folks at, obviously with Western being in Bowling Green, but it's an 11 o'clock start on the day before Thanksgiving. So they're kind of counting on some folks being off from work, I guess, and coming and checking them out at Memorial for that one.
Yeah, I guess so. Not too far of a trip though from Bowling Green, only about an hour. So
yeah, it's kind of tough to take an extended lunch and come down to Nashville from Bowling Green, but we'll see how that one turns out. ALAINA Morris with Vandy247.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today. I don't know if it's saving the best for last, but ALAINA, impressions now that the smoke is cleared from 45-38 in overtime this weekend.
I mean, yeah, what a game that was for Vanderbilt to fight back and pull that one off. Obviously, feels like if you're looking at it that, all right, you're thinking the Vanderbilt defense has a little bit of work to do because they've been tougher and they've, held opponents to 10 points, things like that against, good teams in Missouri, and they played tough against LSU, but they had to fight back against an Auburn team that just fired its head coach. And so I think that just shows, the leadership from Diego Pavia. I mean, if you look at the numbers in that game, he threw for 377 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. He rushed for over 100 yards and had a rushing touchdown, didn't turn the ball over once. And I'd have to argue that was his best game of the season. And now you're sitting at 8-2 and you have a bye week, which in my opinion, I think this comes at a really good time for Clark Lee and his program because you got 2 games left to try to win. You have Kentucky at home and of course the big one, Tennessee. And you don't want to overlook Kentucky because they just beat Florida pretty handedly at home this past weekend. But these are two really important games, and of course, you need a little bit of help from other teams. Hopefully beating the teams you need to get beat, I guess, and just hopefully the kind of falls the way you need it to. But it was big for Vanderbilt to win because if they lost that game against Auburn, it felt like there really wasn't a path to the college football playoff after that.
Oh, and I've heard this point brought up a lot this year, and last year when Diego Pavia was making plays for Vanderbilt, I feel like a lot of the plays that people would first think of would be with his legs. But obviously he could still pass the ball. But how much better has he gotten this year just as a passer, being able to stand in there in the pocket and actually make throws instead of just immediately reverting to his legs?
I think he's become a lot better at that. I mean, there was one pass in the Auburn game that he rolled out to the left and threw it on the run down the sideline to Trey Richardson. And like that play immediately comes to mind for me because he's not only become a better passer, but he can do it, on the move too. He doesn't just have to sit back in the pocket. But I think with that, you also have to give a nod to the offensive line. They've been terrific for them this season, blocking, giving him space, and allowing him time to create those plays.
12 catches, 122 yards, but no touchdowns for Eli Stowers. He's been talked about even before the season as one of the best tight ends in the country. And really, he's not really like your typical tight end where he's like a bulky dude out there. He's a tight end in a wide receiver's body. Just how much of he is, I wouldn't say a security blanket, but how good of he is a top target for Diego Pavia.
I mean, honestly, that feels like a valid term because it feels like, when you need it down, the first guy you think of is, all right, how can we get the ball to Eli Stowers? I mean, he just makes plays. And you mentioned having maybe a more typical looking tight end, but that's Cole Spence for them. He had the game winning touchdown too. And they do a really good job of designing plays where he's blocking and then slips and gets open. Cause it feels like every time Cole Spence catches the ball that he's wide open, and he had that touchdown and no one was around him. And so that's a really good 1-2 punch that the offense has and Tim Beck has to work with. But I mean, Eli Stowers, he really is one of the best tight ends, and he has the body of a wide receiver, but he's also just really quick, really physical, and can climb the ladder. And he's made some really impressive catches that maybe have been a little too high at times, but feels like, when you're throwing the ball to Eli, everything's catchable.
I'm glad you mentioned Cole Spence, ALAINA, because like you said, he had the one catch, but it was for a touchdown on Saturday. But he has shown up here, particularly of late in this Vanderbilt offense. And I don't know if that's because folks are paying so much attention to Stowers, or if he's just running some fantastic routes and getting open, or if they are trying to do more to him. But it feels like he's been pretty impactful in this passing game for Vanderbilt, particularly of late.
Yeah, he has. And a game that I was working at talking to him afterwards was the LSU game, and something that he kind of mentioned in that press conference is just the way that they scheme and they design plays for him, and that's what allows him to get so open. So the play calling is definitely there to benefit him, but he's got great hands, and he talked about how much he loves blocking too. So if you're a coach, you definitely love to hear that, and I think he's definitely gotten a lot more involved. It's just kind of what you need on the field at the time, but the fact that you have two reliable tight ends like Stowers and Spence to rely on is definitely not a bad thing.
You and Calvin kind of mentioned it. Vanderbilt's kind of got to have a little help to move up the ranks in these playoff rankings, which the second set comes out. But they're kind of in a tough position because, like you said, they finished with Kentucky and with Tennessee after this bye week this coming weekend. And I'm not sure how much either of those wins can really help them move up. To your point, they're going to have some help, and scoreboard watching here down the stretch.
Yeah, obviously, you got to take care of business, and you have the bye week, and of course Kentucky, and then at Tennessee. But you got to look at who else you need to root for, essentially. And last week, the two big ones were Virginia losing and Louisville losing, and those teams were right in front of Vanderbilt, and so that helps them a good bit. And then other teams you're kind of looking at from the Big 12, you're looking at BYU, and you're looking at Utah, and can one of those teams maybe take a loss this week or next week? And you're kind of hoping for that. And then the other one this weekend is actually College Game Day. If you're Vanderbilt, you need Pitt to beat Notre Dame, because they're also just sitting there with those two losses right above of Vanderbilt. So it's kind of, you are scoreboard watching in a sense, but you have to win first and then just hope for the best. And even in the SEC, I've seen some people talking about how Georgia needs to win, Texas A&M needs to win, and so you're kind of also rooting for some interconference opponents as well, and just hoping that they can help you move up. But you got to obviously win out and then just hope the rest takes care of itself.
Yeah, they were 16th last week. Where would you anticipate seeing them when the smoke clears tonight?
I'd probably assume they're going to be around 12 or 13, just with who lost and who won this past weekend. They're 13 in the AP poll, so I figure they'll probably be around the same in the college football playoff, just because there wasn't a ton of movement there. That's kind of where I anticipate them being, maybe 2-3 spots ahead of where they were last week. There wasn't a whole lot of movement where you can put them up much higher.
Okay. All right. ALAINA Morris with Vandy 24/7 joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Before we let you go, ALAINA, I want to ask you, did you make it to volleyball Friday?
No, I did not get to make it to that game on Friday. I had somewhere else to be at, but I was able to catch a couple this season, and definitely entertaining to get over there and see volleyball in the West End.
That's awesome. Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it. Look forward to visiting with you again soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
All right. Let's take a break as we continue Top 5 Tuesday here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We'll come back. We'll talk a little baseball. Stick around.
Columbia Power and Water Systems is dedicated to bringing our customers reliable, local service. Whether you're turning on a light switch, your faucet, or streaming on TV, our dedicated team members from here in Murray County work every day to keep you on. If you need us, call us 931-388-4833 or visit cpws.com. CPWS, local service, local support.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today. Top 5 Tuesday continues here on Main Street Sports today, present the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Calvin White. I'm Maurice Patton. Major League Baseball's Rookies of the Year were announced yesterday on the MLB Network, among other places. And Baylor High School graduate Nick Kurtz of the Oakland Athletics took top honors in the American League after hitting 36 home runs this past season. So always good to see a local kid, as local as Chattanooga is, recognized in such a manner. He was the Rookie of the Year in the American League as judged by the Baseball Writers Association of America. But you know, guys like me and David Wilson and Calvin, we're all Braves fans. So it was really cool to see Drake Bond named National Braves catcher / DH, became the 8 years to nail down that award, 10th in franchise
big accomplishment, big honor for Drake nailing that down. I'm sure David will be wearing his Drake Rakes t-shirt when he shows up on the air next. But news, he held off Cubs pitcher Cade Horton and Brewers infielder Caleb Durbin for that award, but it wasn't really close. He got 21 of 30 first place votes.
Yeah, I think I saw that he was the first primary catcher in the National League to win the award since I think Buster Posey in 2010. And, he was really kind of thrown into the fire when Sean Murphy got hurt toward the beginning of the year. And, even when he wasn't playing every day and he was platooning with Sean Murphy, it felt like he hit a home run every time, every other at bat he had, especially earlier in the year. But really later in the year when Sean Murphy was hurt and Drake Baldwin was getting more playing time, you kind of saw in real time the Rookie of the Year campaign rapidly build. And, toward the end of the year, I really never saw a way where Drake Baldwin wasn't going to be the Rookie of the Year, especially toward the end of the season where he was essentially the primary catcher playing every other game.
I think you're absolutely right, Calvin. I didn't see a way that he wasn't going to be, but I felt like I had to kind of check myself because obviously I do have a little bit of a bias, but I just didn't see. Folks talked about Jacob Mizorowski, folks talked about Isaac Collins, and as former Nashville Sounds, you didn't necessarily want to discount either of those guys in this area, but it just felt like Drake was continuing to go out and be productive at a level that for a rookie was really impressive. And again, not taking anything away from those other guys, Cade or any of those Brewers. 6 Brewers received votes, by the way, for Rookie of the Year. But it just felt like it was really his award to lose from maybe mid-August on, to me. And it's kind of nice to be validated as far as that goes, but more than that, it's just nice to see a kid get the recognition that he deserves, as he really did. With Baldwin winning Rookie of the Year again, he's the 10th the 10th Brave to be named Rookie of the Year, tying them with the Yankees for the second most Rookie of the Year honorees. The Dodgers have had 18 during their franchise history, but again, Drake Baldwin, your National League Rookie of the Year, hit 274 with 19 home runs. That 19 home runs is the most by a rookie catcher since 1971. NL Rookie of the Year Earl Williams of the Atlanta Braves hit 33. So
hitting 275 as a catcher will put money in your pocket and get you a job.
Both of those, absolutely. Michael Harris II in 22, Ronald Acuna Jr. in 18, Craig Kimbrell in 2011, with Freddie Freeman finishing second that year. Oh, by the way, Spencer Strider was second in 2022. Rafael Furcal in 2000, David Justice in 1990 after the Braves traded Dale Murphy, and I had sworn off rooting for the Braves at that point. Bob Horner in 78, Earl Williams in 1971, and in Boston, Sam Jethro in 1950 and Alvin Dark in 48 are your 9 previous Braves franchise Rookies of the Year. So again, congrats to Drake Baldwin. Heck of an honor for him. And, with that, the Braves pick up an extra first-round draft pick in the 2026 draft, as David Wilson has mentioned on a couple of occasions, and I just kind of smiled and nodded because I didn't necessarily realize that or why. But in David O'Brien's piece on The Athletic regarding this because Baldwin was on the opening day roster and stayed with the team all season and was a top 100 prospect entering the season. The Braves will receive an extra draft pick at the end of the first round for his winning NL Rookie of the Year. It's a recent MLB rule, and the pick is known as a prospect promotion incentive pick.
We'll take it.
Draft capital. Yeah, absolutely. That extra pick could also be helpful if the Braves were to sign a free agent who turned down a qualifying offer from his former team, in which case the signing team gives up a draft pick to the team from which the player got the QO, qualifying offer. So if
One of the teams who, as one of the
if that were
teams
to be
who's,
the case, the Braves would still have a first round pick. So
yeah, as one of the teams who has one of the worst farm systems in the sport, we will take the pick.
you know, a lot of people say that, but you really have to count attention, particularly on the mound, at some of the folks that the Braves have pushed through here over the last little bit. When you talk about Spencer Schwellenbach, you talk about AJ Smith-Shawver, Hurston Waldrop came up and was nails this year after struggling last year. They've had some guys break through. I don't think this farm system is necessarily as bereft as it's been painted to be. Now, offensively, you may not have necessarily gotten the production out of the farm system that you would have liked to have gotten, but the Braves have long built their farm system on arms, and those arms have really come through, historically and of late. I mean, if Schwellenbach doesn't get hurt, if Grant Holmes doesn't get hurt, and I know if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, but the fact of the matter is they had guys that have come through this organization that were performing well at the major league level before injuries forced them out. And you can scoff at ifs and buts, but the fact remains the Braves on the mound were a completely different team once they had all those injuries this year. And if those people come back healthy in 2026, there's a reason Vegas has them with the second best odds to win the World Series next year or go to the World Series next year out of the National League, despite finishing fourth this past season. So,
and David and I have talked about that, a lot. Everybody had their different opinion about Brian Snitker, but if half the team doesn't get hurt and, Austin Riley and Ozzie Albies don't have season-long slumps, then, we're probably talking about a whole lot different Braves team. And, even if those offensive guys still slumped, they, when fully healthy, I'd like to think they've got, a top 5-10 pitching rotation in the sport. When Spencer Strider's healthy, when Chris Sale's healthy, Chris Sale's, in his late 30s, and he was a unanimous Cy Young winner in his late 30s. If they can get those guys back healthy, and then, Matt Olson and Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, all those guys continue to produce, and along with Drake Baldwin, who I would imagine is going to be, your primary catcher starting next year, I would believe it if the Braves could, make another postseason run.
I don't disagree with you. Obviously it remains to be seen, but they've got some things that they need to take care of over the off season, but there is a lot there for Walt Weiss to work with. And speaking of Walt Weiss, apparently the Braves have finalized their coaching staff under newly named manager Walt Weiss for the 2026 season. Tony Mansolino, most recently the interim Baltimore Orioles, Andy Boy, who had been named third base coach for the Braves, has since been shifted. He will be bench coach. Former Minnesota Twins coach Tommy Watkins will coach third and will oversee outfield defense. Justin Garneau will join the staff as catching coach. Eddie Perez is still on the staff as a major. Tony Diaz is joining the staff as a major league coach. In addition to holdover Tim Hires as hitting coach, Earl Coles will be an assistant hitting coach for the Braves this season. And folks around Nashville may recognize that name because he played for the Sounds in 19. He was manager of the Sounds in so he has since, well, most recently he has been the Nationals hitting coach the last 4 years. He had previously been with the Diamondback, Brewers, and Tigers. So, you know, I'm a little disappointed because I hope that Ron Washington and Eric Young back in some way, shape, or form. Those doors have apparently been closed, and I hate it. But Walt's got his guys. Let's see what it looks like. Should be interesting.
Yeah, and just in terms of, and I know that everybody kind of wanted some of that clubhouse morale back that you got with Wash and EY, but I also wonder how much of Ron Washington's situation is people just don't want to, give him a job if he's still in bad health. Ron Washington is as baseball as it gets. Him and when I think baseball, I think Ron Washington and Terry Francona, and I'm sure Wash will get a chance somewhere, because he's been in baseball I more than twice as long as I've been alive, and he's going to land somewhere. But I would assume, but like you said, just if the Braves can just get everybody back healthy for the start of the year, I feel like you and David could manage the team and they could win some games.
You and David, maybe. I'm not sure that we're built to play the way I want to play because more than they do, but maybe Anton Richardson will help some with that as well. But I'm looking forward
that guy
to
had
it.
Juan Soto stealing 30 bases.
Yeah. So, maybe there's hope. We will see. I hope we run more because I do think that we got a little too dependent on the power game here of late, and we weren't hitting home runs. So we'll see how that goes. But
You got to get on base first.
You do got to get on base first, and that's where Hires comes in. So we'll see how that goes. But I am more excited about Walt Weiss than I was when he was named, and so hopefully that will continue once we actually start playing games that count. We will see. Let's take a break as we close out hour number 1 of Top 5 Tuesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. In our final segment, Calvin and I will give you our top 5 men's college basketball players of all time. But when we come back, we'll be joined by the Blue River Voice, Chip Walters, as we talk. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Is your internet slowing you down? It's time for an upgrade. Whether you're at home, working from your home office, or at your business, it's time to unleash the speed you need with speeds up to 1 gig at CPWS for as low as $70 a month. Give us a call, 931-375-7777. Local service, local support, CPWS.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Top 5 Tuesday continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Calvin White. And joining us, as he usually does on Tuesdays, it's the Blue Raider voice, Chip Walters, from Points Unknown. Chip, where are y'all?
That's right. Somewhere between Nashville and Clarksville on
That didn't take long.
That did not take long. Hopefully we can get him back. There he is. Chip, y'all are on I-24 somewhere, and
yeah, between Nashville and Clarksville, and we're at the New Hope Road exit 31. So we're on our way to Evansville to play the Purple Aces tomorrow night.
Okay, now this isn't an anniversary, is it, Chip? Because I know that it was sometime in early November when Evansville was headed to a game at MTSU when they had that tragic plane crash.
Actually, early December.
Was it December?
In 1977. And I think there are plans for this series to continue and play a game on that 50th anniversary date, which will come in 2 years from now. So, that's always comes up in conversation when these two teams play, and obviously we'll be talking about it on the broadcast tomorrow night.
Yeah. And this is, kind of an intriguing matchup, I think, for MTSU, just from a standpoint that they will be playing someone a little closer to them than certainly Webster.
Correct. And the thing about the first two games that Middle played, the two non-D1s, Milligan and Webster, I thought they handled both of those games the way you would hope would own it. But you're right, you're playing a Missouri Valley team, one of three Missouri Valley teams you'll play this year. You'll have Belmont and Murray later on, but I think I think the coaching staff looks at this just exactly the way you say it. This is kind of a precursor to what you'll see in Conference USA on a night in, night out basis. And, and it's, it's kind of interesting. You look at this first, 2.5 weeks of the season, you're going to play two non-D1s. You're going to play a Missouri Valley club, and then you're going to play Michigan next Wednesday. So you kind of run the gamut there over that first 2.5 weeks.
You mentioned three Missouri Valley Conference teams on the schedule, and Chip, it's still and chalk it up to just being old, I guess. It's tough to think of Belmont and Murray State as Missouri Valley opponents.
Exactly. And, and it's hard not to think of them as, from, the old OC days. And, and I in my head have to, I still remember going to the gym, watching Belmont and Lipscomb play in the old VSAC. And so, we've seen it's come a long way, and everybody's getting off to a good start. And so it's going to be, I think tomorrow night's one that, I'm going to be really paying a lot of attention to. Middle won against Evansville at home a year ago. And so we'll see, taking a team on the road for the first time, all those kind of things. And, Middle, the one thing Middle did a lot of, Coach McDevitt and his staff in both the Milligan and the Webster games was, they experimented with a lot of combinations, a lot of different stuff. They did some things with four guards, one post player, and some other things like that. And I think they got a lot of good data to work with as they move forward.
I'm glad you said that they were playing with a lot of different combinations, because I noticed Chris Loof and Torrey Alston on the floor at the same time. And, I'm no guru by any stretch, and I'm no MTSU basketball expert, but knowing what I know and seeing what I've seen of that team, I did not expect both of them to be on the floor at the same time at any point. What can you tell me about that deployment specifically?
Well, that they're playing two different positions. They've got Torrey at the 4, to where he can, play with his face to the basket and pick and pop, things like that. And Loof is playing a true 5 with his back to the basket, but he's also able to pull a defender out from time to time. And I mean, he's hit a couple of threes already this year, but the other thing that they've done is they've moved Jared Hall from the 4 to the 5, and kind of play that a little bit by committee. And Jared has been kind of, found new life in that new position, playing the 5. He's an undersized, kind of like a DeAndre Dishman type post player, but
not quite as physically present,
right,
as Dishman.
But probably a better jumper and a little quicker, because Dish wore he wore 30 pounds of knee braces and stuff in his at the end of his career. But it's Coach McDevitt and the staff told Jared, said, you don't have to go out there and be our leading scorer, but your guy better not be their leading scorer either. So they're counting on him for defense and rebounding and whatever he can do to contribute offensively.
Chip 12 points and 4 made threes for Trey Green the other night. He's been one of the guys that has kind of stuck around over the last couple of years. Just, what's kept Trey Green hanging around MTSU?
Defense, and he's the best on ball defender. He's found a home that he's very comfortable with. He's last year was kind of his breakout year, as far as being able. He's a 40% 3-point shooter. He's starting at the 2 right now. Sometimes they move he and Javin Carter. They'll rotate those two guys at the 2. Sometimes they'll rotate Sean Smith and Javin Carter at the 1. So that's kind of the way Coach McDevitt is in his vision of building a roster. He wants a lot of interchangeable parts. And again, they can go big with Torrey and Loof in the game at the same time, or they can take Loof out or Torrey out and put a 4th guard in there and play small and still be effective. And that's, they've been working on that during stretches in each of the first 2 games.
And, 13 points in 25 minutes for Alec Oglesby, who kind of got bit with the injury bug last year. How much of a kind of an addition is he to be able to get out there and play some consistent minutes?
Well, it's just great to see him 100% healthy, because we've not seen that in 2 years that he's been here. And, he's always, one of the hardest playing guys you got on the floor, whether it's in practice or in the game. And he's been able to come back, have a couple of double-figure scoring games, kind of get back in somewhat of a rhythm of feeling good and playing well. And and still, he was a career 40% shooter from 3 when he was on that NCAA tournament team at Stetson. So, he's out there now, and he's a perfect example setter of how you go about your business.
The Blue Raider voice, Chip Walters, joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, as the men's basketball team makes its way to Evansville for a Wednesday night matchup. Chip, what have you seen out of Carter, the transfer from Penn State, who played his high school ball over in Alcoa and became quite familiar with Murphy Center during his high school career?
Yeah, it was kind of the friendly confines for him. He won 2 state tournament MVPs in that building. Other than just being a stud on the floor, that's what I've seen out of him. He's super unselfish with the basketball. Had 8 assists in the first game. He embraces whatever role the coaches want him to be in, and he is. He's not a loud guy in the gym all that much. He lets his game play. He's super quick. He's strong. He can score through contact. He's willing to make the extra pass, and that's been a hallmark of this team early. Is they're very unselfish, all willing and able to make the extra pass and give up a good shot to find a better shot. And Javin Carter is at the head of the line and all that.
Shift gears, and I'm not sure that how much you've been able to see the women play, but they head to Tech tonight. They are 2-0 with wins over Tennessee State on Education Day, which I know was loud, and I know they were going crazy over 6-7, but and then they went to St. Louis and picked up a victory. But Blair Balkus already making a name for herself with a couple of double-doubles and CUSA Freshman of the Week this week.
Yep.
Tell me about the Lady Raiders.
Well, they're going to be a work in progress for a while, but they're kind of reinventing themselves every time out. And I've seen them play 3 times. Saw them play in their 2 exhibition games and saw them in their opener against Tennessee State, which they were fortunate to win. But it was a game where they got behind in the fourth quarter, had to make a run, and they held TSU scoreless for about the last 3 minutes of the game. And that was a game that I'm not sure. You kind of had to sweat it out, but it's going to be one of those games that's going to help them down the road, because they really had to overcome some of their own adversity. They also held off a run from St. Louis and then pushed the lead back out to finish off that game. And like you said, Blair Ball, and I've said this before. I think she is like the quintessential. When you think of what is a quintessential Lady Raider basketball player, it's Blair Balgus. It's somebody who comes from a country town that has a ton of a ton of support, where women's basketball and girls basketball is strong, which Wayne County has been for years, from Heather Prater's days, until now. And right now, Mo, she is the only freshman in the country who has had back-to-back double-doubles in her first 2 games as a college player. So she's her work ethic's terrific, and she and another freshman, Macy Pfeiffer, who was Miss Basketball in Mississippi, and Macy won 7 state championships between basketball and volleyball in her high school career. But she and Blair Balgus, it's kind of a special combination that you kind of want to get on and watch these 2 young ladies grow up.
When you talk about quintessential Lady Raider, and I think initially, most recently, Courtney Whitson, so think of Jalen Gregory, and when you mentioned small town and that kind of thing, and there is a thread there that those kids have kind of got that country tough that Rick really appreciates, I think.
100%, and that's why that's the exact reason I talk about that. You hit the ones that really come to mind for me. The Jalen Gregory's of the world, Courtney Whitson, and then this group, of players similar to that. Although now you've got the international flavor out there with Yuhan Lin running the point, and you've got the big girl in the middle, Miss Dominguez, from when she's in there, she's developing from the Canary Islands. So it's it's interesting how they put it together. Like I said, every night they're going to be they're not going to be perfect every night, especially with all the youth that they have on that roster. Huge challenge tonight going to Tennessee Tech. Tech's got a really good team. They're picked to win the OVC this year, are right near the top, and Kim Roseman just does a terrific job up there. And there'll be a lot of folks up in the stands at Eblin Center that remember the glory days of this rivalry. Again, going back to the OVC when you were beating up on each other 2 and 3 times a year.
I don't guess they do the blizzard anymore at Eblin, do they?
I don't think so. I think they changed toilet paper manufacturers, and they have rolls now instead of the squares.
That's unfortunate. Chip Walters, the voice of the Blue Raiders, joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Chip, big weekend on the gridiron as both the 1965 and the 1985 undefeated Blue Raider squads were celebrated on Saturday, and unfortunately that was kind of the extent of the celebration.
Well, that, and of course the salute to veterans, which we had 43rd year in a row for that. But it was great. I think we had about 35 of the guys off the 85 team, and about 20 of the players off of the 1965 team. And of course, as we know, Coach Boots Donnelly is kind of the thread between those. He was a GA. He had completed his playing days and was a GA in 65, and of course coached the 85 team to an 11-0 regular season and a trip to the playoffs, which was Middle's second trip to the 1AA playoffs after going in 1984. But that 85 team had some magic about them. Had to win a couple overtime games at home against Murray and Youngstown. Had Marvin Collier, just doing things a freshman shouldn't be able to do, but a lot of veterans around him propping him up. So it was good to see all them. You had Coach Donnelly was there, Coach Alex Robbins, Coach Bunio, and Floyd Walker, who was a player and then eventually got on the staff after that. But they were all there, all had a good time. And, as you mentioned, on the field, the Blue Raiders, after having 3 straight losses by a total of 8 points, kind of had the dam break in the late third quarter, early fourth quarter against FIU in a game that was 27-24. In that one, FIU, after it was 27-24, they had 3 straight possessions that had a total of 12 offensive plays, a total of 3 minutes off the clock, and they scored 3 touchdowns. So that changed the game dramatically in a very short amount of time. But with that, there've now been a couple of changes on the coaching staff, and getting ready to go to Western Kentucky, a team who's also kind of searching for itself a little bit. They've had a change at quarterback over the last 2 weeks there. They've gone away from Maverick McIver, and and played their backup, and so it'll be an interesting matchup on Saturday to see how all that goes.
Chip, I'd imagine that, even with both teams kind of, spiraling toward the end of the year, like you mentioned, that especially the guys that have been on that MTSU roster for a while now, that this can still be a game that you can still, get the juices flowing a little bit for.
If you don't, I'll use a Boots Donnelly phrase. If you can't get excited for that, you don't have a pulse beat. That was one of Coach Donnelly's phrases, but that's what you would expect going up there. Especially because Western's kind of rubbed it in your nose a little bit, having won 9 out of the last 10 in this series, and that was after Middle had led this series forever, and now Western has a 4-game lead in the overall standings, and I think the message is clear that this is a game where you can get over a lot of your ills, especially with your fan base, if you can go up and win this week.
Yeah, a lot can be forgiven with a win over Western, even under the worst of circumstances. So yeah, that it'd be nice. Chip, you mentioned a couple of coaching changes. One announced earlier today as wide receivers coach. The phrase in Mark Owens's release was that Derek Mason and, let me get it right, and
Cornelius Williams.
Cornelius Williams have parted ways.
Yes.
That coming on the heels. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, all I know is what I've read there. I read the same thing you did, and saw that, and last week you had Kendall Simmons leave the football team for personal reasons, and so that's in the offensive line. And the thing is, the offense ended up scoring the most points it scored all year this past week. Scored 30, which is that's the most they'd had all season. But it's maybe you could still make a case that they may have underachieved a bit, and Coach Mason wanting that wide receiver room to kind of up a little bit, and now they'll hear from a different voice.
Yeah. Chip, what are your thoughts? There's an article out there on CBSSports.com, and I'm sure it's other places as well. This is just where I happen to see it. But new Conference USA member, new FBS participant, Missouri State, is petitioning for bowl eligibility. Now, again, this is their first year of FBS play. They're transitioning from FCS, and when they came into FBS, they knew that as a first-year program, they would not be eligible for bowl participation. But after this past weekend's win over Liberty got them to the 6-win threshold, they are petitioning for that. We know the history of what that looks like, and it's traditionally not been looked at favorably, but we will be petitioning, and we'll see where that goes. We'll let the chips fall where they fall, says Mo State Patrick Ransdell.
And
thoughts?
Yeah, that's not a surprise. Every team that makes the transition and happens to win 6 games, which they have done terrific. I mean, they've won at Middle, they've won at Marshall, they've now won at Liberty. Every school that makes the move and wins 6 games automatically petitions, and they automatically get turned down. So, but it's just kind of the machinations that you go through, and wouldn't surprise me if Delaware did the same thing. But and it's I think I think both of these schools are really have turned out to be great new members. I mean, and we haven't even gotten into basketball and baseball yet. And I think it's, for a lot of people, I think they're going to end up being surprisingly good new members, But I think for Patrick Ransdell, who his dad was the former president at Western Kentucky. So there's kind of some interesting tie-ins between Western and Missouri State in that, number one, Patrick Ransdell, son of the former Western coach, is the AD or the Western president rather, is the AD at there. You've got the head coach at Missouri State, grew up in Bowling Green and met Bobby Petrino's daughter in high school at Bowling Green High School. They're now married, and he's Bobby Petrino's son-in-law, and he's the head coach now at Missouri State. And his brother-in-law, which is Petrino's son, his wife's brother, is also on the staff at Missouri State. So kind of interesting there. But I think what Patrick Ransdell's doing, he is just telling his fan base that he's doing everything he can and going to bat and doing that. So I don't have any problem with it.
Don't cost nothing, right? Or maybe it does, but yeah. Okay. Chip, where y'all at now?
We're getting into Clark's Vegas.
Okay. All right. See if you can get the bus driver. See if you can get the bus driver to pull over and go to Johnny's Big Burger right quick.
That wouldn't be all bad. That wouldn't be all. So
wouldn't be bad at all. But Chip, we appreciate it, man, and thanks for fighting through the connectivity issues. And look forward to catching up with you again.
Good. We've had worse. We've had worse connections in the past, so this worked out okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take it, man. Good luck tomorrow night. Get her done.
All right. Thanks, man. See you.
Bye. Let's take a break here as we continue Top 5 Tuesday on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. In our final segment, Calvin and I will give you our top 5 men's college basketball players ahead of a big night in college basketball across the country. But in our next segment, we will jump into the grab bag. Stick around.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
It's Top 5 Tuesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Calvin White. I'm Maurice Patton. In our final segment, we will be giving you our top 5 men's college basketball players of all time. Be sure and stick around for that. Right now, though, let's talk a little football to start things off here in the grab bag. It was a snooze fest last night as Philadelphia went to Lambeau Field for a matchup with Packers. I think it was 3-0 at the half, 10-7 Philadelphia final. And when I say snooze fest, I do believe I fell asleep. I'm sorry, it was scoreless at the half. Philadelphia got a field goal in the third, and they each scored a touchdown in the final quarter. Hurts threw for 183 yards and a touchdown. Barkley 60 rushing yards in the win. Not a great night for Jordan Love. 20 of 36, 176 passing yards, 3 sacks he took. And Josh Jacobs rushed for 74 yards and their only touchdown. But yeah, again, ugly ball game. I don't know if it was the cold. I don't know if it was just them, but very little appeal. And it's kind of disappointing because you expected more. I mean, Philadelphia improves to 7-2 with that win. Green Bay drops to 5-3-1 with the loss. But I just think on its face, we expected more out of this ball game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the Eagles' MO. Play defense and score just enough points to win. And, you know, they've
Mission
made it very
accomplished.
clear that, well, them and even their own, some of their teammates, we're looking at you, A.J. Brown, have, you know, made it very obvious that they do not care how they win games, as long as they win them. You know, A.J. Brown's a top 5-10 receiver in the NFL. He's getting 30 yards a game, but, you know, it's kind of hard to complain when you're winning games. And that's just what they do. You know, they're kind of the opposite of what the Chiefs have been for all those years, where the Chiefs would put up, 50 points and, you could score 30, but you were going to lose by 20 to the Chiefs. But, the last couple of years version of the Eagles, they'll hold you to 2 scores or less and score just enough points to beat you. But, it never really feels like you have a chance. I guess this version of the Eagles, where they have, such a good defense and such a dominant offensive line, where they can basically just run it, win and wherever they want to, just through your face. And Jalen Hurts doesn't really have to throw the ball.
Ryan Blankenship, former MTSU standout, 7 total tackles, forced a fumble, recovered a fumble. So a good night for the former Blue Raider. Yeah. Philadelphia 10, Green Bay 7 on Monday Night Football last night. Couple of recent developments. Traylon Burks, 3 catches for 58 yards for the Commanders in their loss to Detroit over the weekend. Underwent surgery to repair a broken finger yesterday. I mean, if there is a poster child for we can't have nice things, it feels like it's the former Titans receiver, Traylon Burks. He will miss this weekend's game in Miami. This weekend's game against Miami in Madrid. Hope he gets to go. But I think the Commanders have a bye after this, and he's expected to possibly be back following the open date there. But former Titans receiver Traylon Burks, again, had a big 37-yard catch in that loss against Detroit, but has undergone finger surgery and will be sidelined for a little bit. He's not the only guy out of action here in the National Football League. Rookie two-way player Travis Hunter has had knee surgery on his lateral collateral ligament and will miss the remainder of the season. Expected to return to football activities within 6 months. Jacksonville's number 2 pick went on IR on Halloween after a non-contact injury during practice. At the time, the Jaguars gave no indication that Hunter's injury was potentially season-ending. I guess maybe it was worse than they thought or worse than they let on, one or the other. In his most recent game, he had 8 catches for 101 yards and a score in Jacksonville's 35-7 loss to the Rams. They're 5-4 after that 36-29 loss over the weekend to Houston, and they will go the rest of the way without their rookie. It's a tough hit, both for him and for them.
Yeah, and he'd started playing a little bit better over the last couple of weeks after kind of a rocky first, couple weeks to his rookie season. But it especially at the beginning of the year, it kind of felt like a situation where he's not really elite on either side of the ball, and they don't really know how to use him. It's just that he's kind of a hot commodity because he can play both sides. But I mean, he had been playing better over the last couple of weeks, and obviously he's really good, Heisman Trophy winner last year. But just hope he gets healthy and hopefully gets healthy but doesn't play too well for the Jaguars over the next couple of years. Hopefully the Titans can kind of put a competent football team out there and pick up at least 2 wins next year over the Jags.
Competent. Wow. That's and that feels like a stretch, unfortunately.
That's too much to ask nowadays.
Yeah, it feels like a tough ask. It really does. And what makes it even tougher is they right now don't seem to be the only incompetent team in Nashville. Rangers 6, Predators 3 last night. The Rangers had been 0-7 at home. They had scored 6 total goals during that 0-7 start. They scored 6 goals last night. UC Saros pulled at the end of the second period. Man, it's not looking good on Broadway.
No, and I'm not a big hockey watcher, but all the talk before the year started was how the Preds had to get off to a good start because that's what kind of derailed them early last year. And now, however many games into the season, it's still early, but I've seen people say that Andrew Burnett's probably coaching for his job this week.
And yeah, they are 5-9-4, 5 wins, 9 losses, 4 overtime losses. So it's been a struggle to say the least. Last night was their 5th straight win and their 8th in their last 9 games. One positive note, Matthew Wood had a hat trick that was his 3rd straight game with a goal, and he scored all 3 last night for the Preds. But they are certainly in scramble mode as they head to Europe for the Global Series. They will play the Pittsburgh Penguins on Friday and Saturday in Stockholm, Sweden. And, as I was mentioning to Wade yesterday, I can't imagine that this is the matchup that the NHL really wants to put out front. But, here we are.
Did you ever think the biggest draw in Nashville sports would be Vanderbilt? And we're not talking about baseball.
Yeah, that really puts it in perspective right now. Vanderbilt football, the hottest ticket in town. That's it's kind of nutty. But yeah. I mean, where would you rather be right now? First Bank Stadium, Bridgestone Arena, or Nissan Stadium?
I think I'd go watch Clark Lee and the Doors.
And
slide on over to watch Mark Byington and Shea Ralph.
Yep. I mean, just kind of set up camp over on West End right now because things aren't looking good as you go eastward for sure. And the malaise continues in Memphis. The Grizzlies head to MSG tonight taking on the New York Knicks. The Knicks have won their last 4, including a 134-98 win Sunday over Brooklyn. Memphis scored a season-low 100 points in a 14-point loss to the defending NBA champion Oklahoma City Thunder, but still, Memphis has lost 5 of its last 6 going into tonight, and a lot of talk swirling, are they going to make a move with Ja Morant? What are they going to do? And, Desmond Bain and what he's doing down in Orlando doesn't help that situation any either, I don't guess.
No, and Jaren Jackson Jr. was coming back from an injury to start the year, and it only took 11 games for John Morant to get a 1-game suspension from his own team, and over the last couple of days, I think he's kind of saying without saying that he doesn't want to be a Memphis Grizzly anymore. And he's had his fair share of injuries over the last couple of years too, but kind of compared to the last couple of years where John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. were kind of clicking, and along with Desmond Bain, led the Grizzlies to the playoffs a couple of years. The Grizzlies hadn't been good in a long time before they got good a couple of years ago, and now it kind of seems like the whole thing is falling apart before they ever had a chance to make a real run, even though the West is really deep in the NBA.
And it's unfortunate because, like you said, they're falling apart before they really get a chance to, before you get a chance to see the full version of them. Again, Zach Edey's still out with that ankle injury. Cedric Coward playing well as a rookie, but he's a rookie and he's still got, some upward growth to make. But it's, I just don't think we expected to be talking about the Grizzlies in these terms at this point of the season. Man, it's looking pretty bleak over there at the FedEx Forum. Memphis 4-7 right now. And again, to your point, the West is tough, and I don't know that you necessarily expected to beat Oklahoma City under the best of circumstances, but these don't come anywhere close to the best of circumstances at this point. So definitely scrambling in Memphis right now. 4-7. At least they're ahead of the Mavericks. And at least they still have their GM, because the Mavericks don't. Nico Harrison finally fired earlier today. And, I think people have been waiting for you to fall ever since the Luka trade last year. Well, it finally did. Team owner Patrick Dumont announced in a letter to fans Tuesday that Nico has been fired. Less than a year after the trade that sent Luka Doncic to the Lakers, which set up his downfall in Dallas despite building the 2024 Western Conference champions. Undid it all with one move.
Yeah, and not even a year later, I still don't think we know what he was thinking when he was, pulling the trigger on that move. If Luka was averaging 7 points, 5 rebounds, I don't think we'd be talking about it. But he's still the same Luka Doncic, and now he's playing with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And I know the Lakers aren't world beaters, but Luka's still top 5 player in the NBA,
and he ain't fifth.
No, and I've never seen a situation like this that I can remember where a player that's not even on the team caused a guy to get fired just because there's so much negativity around the team. Because whenever they first traded him, you saw Mavericks fans on the internet just like begging other fans not to go to the arena and to the games just to hold Nico accountable. And I think that's valid. I didn't see any reason to trade Luka Doncic at the time you traded him, especially coming off a finals appearance the year before.
I don't think there's, I like you said, if he was averaging 7 points and 5 rebounds, it might have been different. But yeah, I don't know that there is anything that would warrant that trade. And when both former Cuban and Mavericks legend Dirk Nowitzki come out in disagreement over the trade that you made, you got to know that the writing is kind of on the wall. It's not if, it's when. Well, when became Tuesday. Nico Harrison out as general manager of the Dallas Mavericks. As we mentioned during our conversation with ALAINA Morris from VANDY247.com, college football playoff rankings 2.0 will drop tonight. And I'm interested to see, where our local teams wind up this time around. Vanderbilt was 16th last week. I think Tennessee was 20th. I don't know that Memphis was in there. I don't know if any of them move up. You know, UT was off this past weekend, so I'm not sure that there's any place for them to go. And they're certainly on the fringe. I mean, they're out of playoff consideration. So, but Vanderbilt will bear watching. ALAINA thinks they may go up 2 or 3 spots, which I think would be a good place to Vanderbilt to be and just kind of hover and watch maybe some folks fall around them here over the next few weeks, if that were to be the case. That ain't all the news out of college football, though. Apparently, Brian Kelly and Louisiana State University are not done with each other. Kelly filed a lawsuit yesterday because LSU tried to get him to agree to a lower total buyout than the 54 that he and his counsel say he's due. It was announced at the time that he was fired that LSU owes him like $54 million. LSU is saying otherwise, going so far as to say that Scott Woodward did not have the authority to fire him. I say did not because he's no longer the AD. And to assert essentially they are firing, have not fired is their stance, are firing Brian Kelly for cause. Now, Brian Kelly did not coach in LSU's last ball game. Frank Wilson did against Alabama, but LSU did not fire Brian Kelly. What you thought you saw, you did not see, as Will Smith said in Men in Black. But yeah, there will be lawyers.
There will be lawyers, and he will probably win. And I mean, the best job in the world right now is a fired football coach.
Yeah, it's not bad. It pays pretty well. You know, obviously you got to get there, but yeah, to your point, just pay that man his money. I'm no Brian Kelly fan by any stretch, but you paid him, you knew what the buyout was, give it to him and go on about your business. I mean, LSU is doing everything they can to sabotage their own coaching search.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one thing that I don't think a lot of people realize. Schools don't pay coaches these big contracts if they can't afford the buyout. They can afford the buyout, so just give him his money and you can be done with him, you know, faster than all of this is going to take to drag on. And, you know, David and I have talked about this over the last couple of weeks and, you know, when you look at the two coaches before Brian Kelly, Les Miles and Ed Orgeron, both won a national championship, both got fired. The standard at LSU is pretty high. That's, you know, unless Alabama opens up by the time the season's over, which it's not going to, LSU is going to be the premier opening in the country. And, you know, if you're LSU and you want to go get another top tier football coach, you're not exactly helping yourself right now.
You really are not. Yeah. So that will bear watching. Let's take a break. Our final break here on Top 5 Tuesday on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, it is time for Top 5 Tuesday. Calvin and I will give you our top 5 men's college basketball players of all time. And I am interested to hear Calvin's list because, you know, just the age gap here. Stay tuned.
The winning just got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the Pick Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
There's a line that links us all. Most of the time, we don't even think about it, but it's everywhere. Illuminating our neighborhoods, empowering our businesses, and helping us to recharge. Whether it comes from our grids, the sun, or a kind heart, we believe in the power of good energy. And as your family and region continue to grow, you can trust that we'll always be there for you. Middle Tennessee Electric, bringing good energy.
Tired of buffering and slow internet speeds? Upgrade your life with Columbia Power and Water Internet. Get lightning fast internet with speeds up to an incredible 1 gig. Stream, game, and work seamlessly, all for just $70 a month. If you're looking for local service and local support, visit cpws.com or call 931-375-7777 and tell them your friends at Main Street Sports Today sent you.
It's Top 5 Tuesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. It's the final segment of Top 5 Tuesday, which means it's time for Top 5 Tuesday, where the participants in the show typically give you a top 5 in some category. Might be sports related, might not be. This week it is, and in recognition of a huge men's college basketball schedule tonight. One of the hottest rivalries in all of college basketball renews as the University of Kentucky, ranked number 9, goes to number 12 Louisville tonight. Also, number 11 Texas Tech is at number 14 Illinois, and 23rd ranked Creighton goes to number 19 Gonzaga tonight. So if hoops is your thing, you want to be close to a TV and a remote tonight to try to catch some of or all three of these. But with that as our backdrop, Calvin and I are going to give you our top 5 men's college basketball players of all time. And again, I'm intrigued the frame of reference that Calvin and I have. I mean, I've got kids older than Mr. White, so we've not necessarily seen the same guys. That said, Calvin, the floor is yours for your number 1 pick on Top 5 Tuesday.
I tried to have a little bit of variety just because I assumed that we're going to have a couple of the same guys, but you know, you've got to, no matter who had the number 1 pick, you have to have this guy because I think he's pretty clearly the number 1 college basketball player of all time, and it's Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You know, not even allowed to play as a freshman back then, and what he did in college, you know, he's got just about every record you can think of. 3-time champion, 3-time player of the year. Obviously, everybody knows about his NBA career, but you know, I think he's pretty easily the best men's college basketball player of all time.
When they make rules for you, that kind of says it all. And the NCAA outlawed the dunk during Lou Alcindor's career. Kind of tells you everything you need to know right there. That's a solid pick. You know, when we came up with this category, the first name I came up with won't be a name that everybody will come up with. But again, in 1985, playing at Wichita State, Xavier McDaniel, the X-Man who went on to enjoy quite the solid NBA career with the Seattle Supersonics, among others, 27.2 points, 14.8 rebounds, both of which led the country. Sign me up. Xavier McDaniel from Wichita State. 9 20-20 games in his career. That's 20 points and 20 boards. That's getting it done.
Not a guy that was on my radar, but you know, can't beat the stat line. The numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie. Go ahead with your number 2.
No. Number 2 is who I think is the second best men's player of all time, and it's Bill Walton. We're going to stick with our UCLA theme.
Mhm.
Averaged 20 points and 15 rebounds across his career at UCLA. He won 10 of a 12 possible championships. UCLA between Kareem and Bill Walton. During that gap, I can't imagine what it would look like if they got to play together. But Bill Walton kind of famous for that perfect game he had against Memphis in the championship game. Didn't miss a shot. I'll go Bill Walton as my number 2 player.
It's wild that you could almost come up with 5 guys from LSU alone. And with that said, there might be some argument as to whether Pete Maravich was the best player ever to play at LSU, but I'm going to go with him at number 2. This guy averaged, with a 3-point line, he probably would have averaged 40-something points or more per game. A scoring machine, a ball handling wizard, and a entertainment mogul, just in terms of his style of play on the floor. Pete Maravich at number 2. Number 3, Calvin.
I went with Christian Laettner. He's the all-time leading scorer in the history of the NCAA tournament. 4 Final Fours. I think if Kareem and Bill Walton didn't exist, Christian Laettner's probably got an argument for the best college player of all time. He's got the most famous shot in the history of the tournament in the 92 Elite 8 game over Kentucky, hit the buzzer beater fadeaway. Led Coach K to his first 2 titles. I'll go with Christian Laettner at number 3.
You did not make any friends with Wade Neely with that pick, but that's okay. At number 3, I'm going with Charlotte, Tennessee native Oscar Robertson from Cincinnati. Back in the late 50s, early 60s, this guy was something special and continued it at the NBA level. Oscar Robertson at number 3 for me. Number 4?
I went with David Thompson at NC State. There's probably 5 guys that you could have an argument are the best player in the history of the ACC, and David Thompson's one of them. Along with Michael Jordan, Ralph Sampson, all those guys. David Thompson dominated at NC State. Won a national championship, was the Final Four most outstanding player. He was 3-time ACC Player of the Year. I'll go David Thompson, number 4.
There you go. I'm going to go at number 4 with Irvin Johnson. He was known as Irvin at that point at Michigan State, later became Magic, but kind of a revolutionary player just from being a 6'8" point guard. And kudos to Judd Heathcote for letting him be a 6'8" point guard. Led the Spartans to a championship in '79. Give me Magic Johnson at number 4. Number 5?
I'm going to go I went with this guy just because I don't think he gets the recognition he does or he deserves for his college career because he didn't go to a big-time college. But Bill Russell led San Francisco to back-to-back championships in the 50s. Averaged 20 points and 20 rebounds. He's probably the winningest basketball player of all time when you take into account all 3 levels, high school, college, and the NBA. So I'll go Bill Russell, number 5.
I don't think you can have Magic Johnson and not have Larry Bird. I mean, those guys were joined at the hip pretty much since their national championship game between Michigan State and Indiana State, and elevating a program like the Sycamores to a national championship ball game kind of says something and does something. Give me Larry Bird at number 5. But let me just say, Calvin, I'm impressed. Christian Laettner was probably your most recent pick, and good stuff. I didn't expect that. I wasn't familiar with your game. That's going to do it for Top 5 Tuesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Tune in tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I believe it, David and Wade. They'll see y'all tomorrow.